The Lunaverse, Episode 1 by Rainbow Double Dash. Longest Day, Longest Night by Rainbow Double Dash. Chapter 14 The Letter. Lyra gagged as she felt something unbelievably bitter pressed into her mouth. She made to spit it out, but a pair of hooves clamped her mouth shut. No! Charlie ordered in a determined voice as she held Lyra's mouth closed. You're eating that! I don't care how it tastes! Grimacing, the unicorn obeyed her captor. She only made whatever she was eating taste worse, but after a moment she was able, barely, to swallow whatever foul thing had been forced to eat. There! She said through clenched teeth, brushing Charlie's hooves off her mouth before, as he stood on her shaking hooves. That was awful! She ran her teeth on her tongue and spat, trying to get the taste off of it, but no avail. There was only one option then. She trotted away from where she had been lying. It was largely, for some reason, blackened, burnt grass. Bending her head low and ripping up as much grass as possible from the clearing and chewing thoroughly. It can't be that bad, Trixie said as she looked into her hat, which was empty. They smell like dandelions. It's hard on a fork! Lyra nodded, as best she could with a mouth of grass. After swallowing, not that it helped much, she glared at the 5 ponies, who were staring at her hopefully. What? She demanded. How are you feeling? Dizzy-Doo asked. Trixie says that you over-channeled. Lyra blinked a few times, looking up at her horn as she willed some magic through it. It glowed gold, and the sensation of channeling magic felt normal. Fine, she said, indignation at being made to eat whatever those things were, disappearing at the sound of the word over-channeled. How long was I out? Only about an hour, Shirley explained, eliciting a sigh of relief from Lyra. It could have been much, much longer. Carrot Top came up with the idea of finding something called an ether flower. As Sakura helped her, Raindrops and Trixie found some. We fed you the petals while you were asleep. You were just instinctively chewing and swallowing until a moment ago. Her body knew it needed magic, and knew the petals had them, Trixie explained, as she telekinetically hefted her cape from the ground and shook it around a little, getting residual moisture and soot from the burnt grass off of it, before replacing it on her back. She looked morosely into her hat again, then sighed. So, she ate all of them. Lyra's head tilted aside. How is that a bad thing? To get to the ether flowers, we had to walk through Poison Choke, Caritas explained. The Raindrops and Trixie and me. We'll be fine. It's not lethal, but its effects should begin in just a few hours. The mint unicorn looked between Carrot Top, Raindrops, and Trixie's eyes wide. What? She asked, why? Couldn't Raindrops just fly over the poison... whatever? Carrot Top looked down at that, dejected, but for that received a playful plank fun from Raindrops. Because she's an idiot, Raindrops said, though without any malice in her voice. We're all idiots. We're also on a time limit, Trixie said, turning to look at Sakura. She was at the edge of the clearing, talking to Spike, who was looking increasingly depressed at whatever it was Sakura had to say. Trixie didn't feel bad, therefore, when she interrupted. We need to get moving again. To the palace, she said. I think I saw it when I was looking for Dizzy-Doo, Raindrop said, looking around a moment before pointing. That way, right? The zebra nodded. This way to the Rune Castle, she said, turning and beginning to trot. The ponies following her and Spike once more hopping onto her back. Hopefully, we can reach it without further hassle. To this day, nobody quite understood what had possessed Luna and Corona, or rather, Silesia, had this been prior to her fall from grace, to build the palace of the Royal Pony Sisters in the Everfree Forest. It had been rebuilt and remodeled many times over the millennia, but its foundations was old. Older than Equestria as a nation. Maybe even older than the 3 pony nations that preceded Equestria, and indeed, possibly even older than ponies as a race. With the sun hanging and unmoving in the sky, it was difficult to tell what time it was. But if forced to guess, Trixie would have supposed that it was probably past what should have been dawn. Given that, had Corona not been so inconsiderate as to escape from the sun and take over Equestria, around sunrise was when she and everybody else had been planning on going to sleep, having stayed out to celebrate the longest night. She was thoroughly exhausted when the trees parted to reveal a deep ravine, and on the other side, the palace. The everfree was quiet and still as the ponies, and Zebra, and Baby Dragon, approached the edge of their side of the ravine. By now, fog had been rising through the everfree, was reaching up to the ponies' barrels, and was bright, almost painful to look at as it reflected sunlight, adding to the eerie, unearthly sight of the palace. No sound reached their ears other than a low wind and the sound of their own breathing as with hooves on the snow. The palace itself looked precariously small. It seemed to be divided into two sections. Further from the ponies was a tall tower, covered in melting snow and ice, with dead vines running up the gray stone of the structure. Closer was a shorter, but far broader building, likely once the main palace of itself, where Luna and Silesia would have held court, for any pony brave enough to journey into Everfree and reach them anyway. Here and there, collapsed stone walls and edifices probably indicated that the tower and court had been once part of a single, larger structure. But time and the encroachment of the Everfree's twisted boughs had seen to it that this was no longer the case. It was also the remains of a wooden bridge hanging on the far side of the ravine, the ravages of time having caused it to collapse. This was probably just as well, though, as it prevented from Trixie from being stupid enough to try and cross a 1,000-year-old wooden bridge that no pony had been maintaining. Trixie glanced over the edge of the ravine. The fog from the snow, being heavier than air, was drifting over the edge, preventing her from seeing any further than about 20 feet down. It was impossible to judge how far it was to the bottom. It was also too wide to risk jumping. "Guess we need to be carried," she remarked, glancing at raindrops and Dizzy Dew. Something nagged at Trixie, but she couldn't place what at the moment, probably due to how tired she was. Trixie? Yes, Ditsy. Why cross the ravine at all? Why not head down to that small cave where that really nice shiny tree is? No. Guessing the tree wouldn't be useful. I have no idea what it is, and Luna never said what it was. She just said, very important, wait till later. Trixie never pays attention to these things. Okay, because it looks like it's a really nice tree. Guess so, was Raindrop's response, flapping her wings a few times in preparation, before taking wing and scooping up cheerily after she volunteered to go first, along with Lyra and Dizzy Dew's hooves. Trixie took a moment to turn to Sakura and Spike. Thank you, she said, forcing her suspicions of the zebra aside. After all, Sakura had guided them safely to the palace. Siren and pointed joke runners aside. I don't know how long we would have been wandering around the Everfree without you. I assure you, it was no trouble at all, Sakura promised her. But I must ask, how do you intend to free Equestria from Corona's thrall? Trixie made a face that was halfway between a grin and a grimace. I have no idea, she admitted quietly. The elements of harmony are in there, so... Whoa! Spike erupted, eyes wide. I thought they were a Canterlot! Trixie's eyes widened a little as well, and she shook her head. She was really tired if she had let something like that slip. No, Trixie said, but don't tell any pony, okay? I shouldn't have said that. Sakura offered a nod, as Spike scratched the back of his head. Where are they? He asked. Can't tell you that either, Trixie said, as Raindrops and Dizzy Dew returned for her and Carrot Top. I understand your concern, Sakura apologized. Forgive Spike for asking out of turn. So it's past Trixie, into the palace. Once that was a place of wonder, but that feeling was torn asunder. It is now a place of pain and regret, one which I would rather forget. We came here once to wait out the storm, and to repeat of that time I would not like to perform. Do the traps still work, huh? Trixie asked. Sakura inclined her head, and Spike nodded fervently. Trixie herself sighed. Of course they do. Good luck with that! Spike offered, As raindrops picked up Trixie, and the baby dragon waved goodbye, Sakura doing likewise. Once Trixie was down on the other side, she returned to Jester, and waited a few moments as he watched Sakura and Spike begin walking off. They were soon out of sight due to the fog. Then she turned and looked ahead. There was a worn, rough stairway she would have to climb to reach the court. Okay, here we go, Trixie intoned, beginning to trot up the steps, the other ponies following her. The first trap is right at the top of the steps here, at the door. What's it do? Shirley asked. It's a pressure plate, Trixie explained, but also magical. Setting it off will cause a wall of fire to spring up. It's basically a go-away sign. The trap probably won't hurt any pony, but it'll scare them away. She paused at the door to the court, staring down and making a face. Unless some ponies set it off already. She intoned, leaning down. The tiles in front of the door were all depressed, sunken in about an inch to the ground, while in a half circle surrounding them, the floor was scorched black. Trixie tentatively put a hoof under the pressure plate, then leaned her weight onto it, but nothing happened. That's not right, she remarked in a low voice. Sakura and Spike have been here, Carrot Top pointed out. They probably set it off. That's not what's odd, Trixie said. The traps are self-resetting and magically self-sustaining. There shouldn't be any sprung traps. Raindrop stared at a moment, then shook her mane and trotted into the court before Trixie could stop her. Nothing happened, however, and the Pegasus looked back at the group. Don't question luck, I guess, she decided. The ponies all wandered into the court, getting their first look at it, or in Trixie's case, her second. Because it was her second, however, her eyes widened slightly, and how much was out of place. Here, there was a pit in the floor, lying open. Over there, an axe on a pendulum, embedded in a crumbling pillar. Another pillar had fallen over entirely, and would have been blocking the rear exit had its central section not been pushed out of the way by force. There was an occasional scorch mark or acid pit on the floor, but the former were cool to the touch, while the latter the acid had been calcified and was now harmless. What? She demanded. No, 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 no! You're supposed to be death traps! Really clever ones! Trixie trotted forward to a pit, looking down. At the bottom were spikes, but no kind of anybody but some pony who may have set it off. Maybe, Lyra ventured, animals? Maybe animals set them off? Oh, right! Trixie remarked, rolling her eyes. 995 years or so have passed before Luna and me came here and everything was in place. Then 5 years later, the animals of the everfree decided to hold a party here or something! Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, and Trixie let out an exasperated sigh. I'm sorry, she apologized. Sorry, I'm tired. And no, not animals. There's an enchantment woven over the whole area that'll keep animals out. Some pony came here and set off the traps, and now, somehow, kept them from resetting. But why would? Her eyes widened as he realized. The elements! It was taking the combined efforts of every single unicorn in the capital city, but Silesia was nevertheless being kept out of Canterlot. The white alicorn stood in the sky, directly over the city, not even bothering to beat her wings in order to remain suspended in the air. Beneath her, the city of Canterlot, which had grown quite large since last Silesia laid her eyes upon it, was encased in a violet spear, and it had been since her arrival. Had it been created by a single unicorn, Silesia could have smashed it long ago. But a white-coated unicorn who was generating it, who stood in the courtyard of the Canterlot Castle, wearing blue and silver armor that Silesia could only assume was the current uniform of the Royal Guard, was being fed a constant stream of magical energy by dozens of other unicorns in the Guard. They were being aided by other unicorns themselves, and they by others, and so on. The result was a magical spear that could defy even Silesia's power. For a time, anyway. The alicorn set her hostages down on the ground beneath them, and cozied them with a wide circle of fire. She had previously been keeping them suspended in the air with her. But the crying of the foals, and more than a few of the adult ponies as well, had begun to grate on her nerves, as she called for silence that had been disobeyed. She recognized, however, that their disobedience was not intentional, but rather born from the irrational fear that ponies felt toward her glorious person. Had she not already seen to Luna's banishment, her little sister would have had much to answer for. Silesia walked forward along the air, striding right up to the edge of the magical bubble and glaring down into it. She was absolutely certain that, as she brought her full power to bear on the bubble, she could smash through it. She was equally certain that doing so would probably ignite the atmosphere for several miles in every direction, rendering Canterlot and much of the surrounding countryside a fiery wasteland of scorched glass and burned earth. She had to be patient with the ponies, she reminded herself. They had 1,000 years of Luna's lies controlling their actions. Silesia closed her eyes, willing herself forward. No matter how thick the mass, some insects could always find their way through. And with magical shields, it was no different, albeit in a more metaphorical sense. She could not bring any true power down on Canterlot while it persisted, but she could project the teeniest portion of her power forward, and will it to take on her shape and form inside the barrier, manifesting in front of the unicorn who projected the shield. The reaction was just shy of instantaneous, of course. There were dozens of spears from nearby Pegasi and Earth Pony guards trained on her, and while numerous unicorns broke off their channel in Yarashi into the shield-generating unicorn, turned their magic towards her avatar. None of them, however, were quite foolish enough to attack her. The shield's creator himself opened his eyes, but his horn continued to glow, and project power into Canterlot's barrier. "Peace, my subjects!" Silesia assured the guard ponies, bowing her head slightly to them. "I would speak with whoever my sister have appointed as her—" "Release Luna from the moon," the shield creator interrupted, stabbing his hoof as he did so. Silesia blinked several times at the affront. Such disrespect! Did Luna really tolerate such an attitude from her soldier? "Dost thou speak for all of Canterlot in my sister's stead?" The unicorn offered neither confirmation nor denial. Silesia's eyes narrowed at yet another blatant act of disrespect for a being of her station. "Thy shield is of impressive quality," she pressed on, "and thou art no doubt acting as thou believest thou must to protect thy charge. But I speak truly when I said I intend no harm to Canterlot, nor to her inhabitants." She looked around to the guard ponies surrounding her avatar. "Nor her defenders. You are as mayflies standing against a hurricane. Your bravery is the sort of spoken of in legends. But it is not misplaced. I would be a poor queen if I indeed intended to harm any of my subjects. Now, noble guard, I see no reason why—" "Release Luna from the moon," the unicorn repeated. "Now." A second interruption. Silesia's eyes narrowed further as he forced herself to not grow angry with the net in front of her. "Thou art only mortal. No other pony in Canterlot could create the shield, and it is only through the aid of so many other unicorns that thou create a barrier that I cannot penetrate. Thy helpers grow weary. Thou shalt grow weary. But I am immortal. I am the sun. I need never sleep, nor eat, nor do anything but wait for thy failure. One way or another, I shall enter Canterlot. Dost thou really wish for me to do so, with flames at my hooves, and my eyes filled with burning wrath? Art thou so callous towards ponies thou art sworn to protect?" Only silence greeted Silesia's appeal to reason. Her eyes slimmed to become narrow slits by this point. "Thou art— Release Luna from the moon now!" the guard interrupted. A third time, deliberately. He had waited to interrupt Corona in such a fashion. Even worse, even more believably, he had shouted at her. "Thou shalt not speak to me in such a manner!" Silesia exclaimed, as she felt her control and her temper slip. She did nothing to rein it in. "Dost thou not know who I am?" "Of course I do," the guard responded. You're the tyrant's son, Corona. That is not my name! Silesia shouted, stomping a hoof. It had significantly less force in this mere avatar's body than it would have in person, but it certainly served to accentuate her point. That is a lie constructed by my treacherous sister! I am Silesia, fool! I am the sun! I am thy queen! Thou hast no right to bar me from assuming my throne! It is mine! Equestria is mine! All of it! Mine! The way in which the white-coated unicorn, waiting for Silesia to finish shouting at him, reminded her far too much of a parent nonchalantly observing a foal's temper tantrum. The carefully neutral and almost conciliatory tone to his voice, as he spoke next, did not help with the impression. Equestria doesn't have a queen, he said. It has a princess. As long as there is breath in my body, I will never let you have Canterlot. Corona. Silesia snarled, an animalistic, alien expression and sound for an equine being. Her head dipped somewhat as her wings spread. What is thy name? She inquired in a low voice. The unicorn drew himself fully. She was immensely impressive height, though he was still noticeably shorter than Silesia herself. Shining armor, he declared. The unicorn offered a bright grin that was totally out of place on her otherwise incensed features. 100 years from now, she said, when ponies walk by the still burning crater that this city will become, when foals turn to their parents and ask, what happened here? Those parents shall tell their foals a story of the hubris and arrogance of one pony who dared to try and hold back the glory of the sun. And the pony they shall be of thou, shining armor. Silesia withdrew her avatar from Canterlot, bringing her consciousness back to her own body. Her wings beat once, dragging her backwards and away from Canterlot, even as her horn glowed in her hostages. The ponies taken from Ponyville were wrapped in several layers of protective magic. She had no intention of betraying her word to the Ponyvillians, and besides, she would need ponies to bear witness to the rightful wrath she was about to bring on Canterlot. All the better that so many of them were foals. They would carry this divine retribution in their memories for all their lives. Her horn glowed brighter as she began dragging the pure power of the sun into her being. She would destroy Canterlot utterly, reducing it to molten rock and blackened glass. She could build a capital elsewhere, after all. It mattered not where she reigned from. And this would probably be the surest way to wipe out the majority of her sister's influence in a single stroke. There was a flash of green in front of Silesia. The unicorn paused in her gathering of power, as the flash realized itself as a rolled-up, short scroll, which began to fall until Silesia grasped it in her telekinesis. Was it an attempted apology on Shining Armor's part? However much she deserved it, Silesia doubted that the foal's tiny number of brain cells could have interacted enough to realize the depths of his mistake, and speaking to Silesia as he had. Curiosity drove the unicorn forward, as he unfurled the scroll and began to read. O Queen Corona, I am your faithful servant. Towards the signs of your return, I have been most observant. I journey to the everfree forest to bring aid to you, and serving your side is all I shall pursue. Verse? Silesia asked no pony, blinking several times in confusion. The letter was written in verse? Good written, Alcebra! The sheer novelty, not to mention the genuinely servile tone, was the right and proper way to address her. Was even enough to make her ignore the letter was addressed to the lie that was Corona. This letter is not how I wish to contact your majesty. But in the everfree there is a problem, a travesty. 6 ponies have entered here, and despite my impediments, they are now reaching the harmonious elements. Silesia's grew wide as something, not fear, something stabbed at her heart. The elements of harmony? Surely that was what the author of this letter was referring to. Harmonious elements being used instead simply to continue to rhyme. And I fear I am no match for these ponies alone, and I beg forgiveness for drawing you away from your throne. For these ponies reach the ruined palace, their destination. They could in your foolishness cause you endless frustration. I implore you, my queen, to come to Everfree Castle, for these ponies can cause you hassle. I offer my services and skills a plethora. Your faithful servant, Sakura. Definitely a zebra name. Was explained in rhyming as well as their devotion. Though the tyranny of Equestria never stretched to the zebra homeland in the far south, the zebras had always been sun worshippers, offering constant praise and supplication to the sun and therefore to Silesia. This particular zebra also had a gift for the understatement, as she thought that the ponies getting their moral clothes on the elements of harmony was being simply frustrating. Corrupted by dark magic as they had been by Luna, for how else could her wayward sister turn them upon her? The elements of harmony could conceivably use to banish her once more, consign her once again to 1,000 years of exile in the sun. Silesia's magic reached down, as he grabbed her hostages and levitated into the air again, ignoring their screams of terror as he turned and began flying with all speed towards the everfree forest. Sight of the old palace. Canterlot could wait. This was a problem that had to be dealt with. Now.